is among some of the hopeful signs for Republicans, I would say, as they look forward to the November election. Joining us now from Washington, the 2008 GOP presidential candidate, Senator John McCain. It's our pleasure to have you on today, sir, especially. We were talking about D-Day earlier, and we all admire you, obviously, and thank you for your service. But what did you make of Wisconsin yesterday?
I made of it that it was very important for Walker to win. Otherwise, it would have sent a message to governors all over America that you can't take on the public sector unions. But I also think we should temper that with the knowledge that a lot of the citizens in Wisconsin voted to retain Governor Walker because they believe that the only reason for recall is for incompetence or unethical behavior, not for policy differences. So I think we ought to appreciate that. And by the way, Stephen, preeminent comes with old age and senility. I'm becoming more and more. People say he's a preeminent politician, so so I think you're earning that. You're on the verge of earning that.
No, with Steve,
nice to know.
For Leisman, what'd you say? Senility, check, and age. I think he's good. We're good on that. Other than that, and I don't know how closely you follow all the polling numbers, Senator. Where do you think we are right now in the general election? I still see on Intrade 52 for the president's reelection, and I think Mitt Romney's up to about 43. That's not, in concrete, obviously, and it's been coming down. But an incumbent president has a lot of advantages. Do you think it's a pretty tight race here?
I think it's a tight race, and I note that number is coming down. I think it was up around 58 or 60 for
yes.
those that follow it. The impact of the latest economic news always takes time to be reflected in the polling. So I think we're going to be up late on election night. I really do, and we're going to be looking at 3 or 4 states that could go either way by a very small percentage. And by the way, I want to thank you for having President Clinton on. He's the gift that keeps on giving, and I want to thank you for that. I hope you'll have him on more often to talk about Bain Capital and the necessity to extend the Bush tax cuts. So we appreciate that public service that you're doing.
I mean, sterling is such a good word. I didn't even come up with sterling. I mean, we do have to have a sterling reputation.
Senator, we were debating this earlier, actually. The president appears to have, President Clinton appears to have rolled back some of those comments.
Sure. And
we were wondering, do you really think that the White House calls up President Clinton and says, look, Ixnay, you can't say this anymore?
I think they call his people. They know people who are. I don't think it's a direct contact. But look, I'm very curious about this because the smartest pure politician that I've ever encountered is President Bill Clinton, and by the way, one of the very smartest. So I'm a little curious about these quote missteps that the day after has to be where the damage control kicks in. But I think he's right on both counts. And but on this whole issue you're talking. By the way, last time I was on, I said, until the housing market stabilizes, that I didn't think we were going to see any signs of improvement. Well, I'm happy to tell you that in Arizona, it appears as if our housing situation is stabilized and maybe even showing a little bit of improvement. So there's a little ray of sunshine. If you're digging for the pony, I'd like to. We are at least seeing some stabilization in the housing market, and as I mentioned before, the area we should have gone after first, rather than the other bailouts, in my view.
Senator, I know you're here today because you want to talk about some of the leaks we've seen in terms of national
I want to
defense.
talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I'd like to hear this too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story
Sure.
on the second page, A2 of the Wall Street Journal today. The FBI is going to be probing some of these leaks. What do you think's happened, and why do you think it's such a huge problem that these leaks have been out about something like this?
Leaks have always been part of the environment here in Washington, and many times they've served useful purpose, exposing graft, corruption, misbehavior. We all know that every administration wants to overclassify things so that they don't have to have embarrassing information out there in the public arena. But this is really serious stuff. And by the way, for example, the bin Laden operation, they leaked the name of SEAL Team 6, all kinds of information, including this doctor who has now just been sentenced to basically a death sentence in Pakistan, 33-year sentence. His name never should have been made public. And now we're talking about two of the most serious national security challenges that we have, the drones and the cyber situation as far as the Iranian nuclear situation is concerned. Both of those details have been revealed, which had no business being in the public arena. Can only alert our adversaries and give them a greater ability to counter what we are trying to do. And I think it's really, really harmful. And I hope that we in the Armed Services Committee need to have a hearing on the drone issue and this whole issue of what we tried to do as far as the virus is concerned with the Iranians can help no one but the Iranians.
Where do you think the leaks are coming from?
Well, according to the New York Times report, administration officials, the reporter got the information and then it was confirmed. It was confirmed at the highest level of the White House. I can't tell you the number of times I've been called, will you confirm this? And I said, I don't talk about classified material instead. And it's pretty obvious that in all of these stories, guess who comes out looking pretty good? The brave leader. I think, you know, I wouldn't, honestly, I think this was also an attempt by some in the White House to make the president look good on national security.
All right. Senator, I don't. The one thing after that jobs report, I just think Republicans need to be wary of looking like they're, you know, looking like it's playing into their hands a slow economy and people out of work, and that's going to be used by the White House. That the Republicans, the reason that Congress won't do anything is because they're just setting the president up for a loss. And I just wonder that's a tough thing to counteract. You know. Well,
I think you counteracted by the facts of the first 2 years of this administration. They had 60 votes in the Senate, overwhelming majority in the House. Yeah, they could have done a lot of things a lot differently if, with the overwhelming majorities they had in both houses. Instead, we got the three major Obamacare, the stimulus, and the third one is.
We asked about Europe.
Yeah, and so there were three major pieces of legislation, and none of those turned out too well.
Yeah. All right, Senator, thank you. We got to run. We appreciate it, your time today very much, Senator McCain.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Okay.
When we come